Of our AUSN students and faculty from different countries by Skype. And the more will join depending on the time zone. Later has some birds. Now, I'd like to go around the room and let people introduce themselves. We are missing a couple of people who may still be finding their room or arriving later. So my name is Darryl Mason, and it's my great pleasure to be welcoming you to the Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok. And I'm the president of the American University of Sovereign Nations, and I know everybody here. Balita is the first time for me that I'm enjoying this ambience. We'll pass it around, and please push the button to introduce the mic so people on Skype can hear as well, and then I'll ask the Skype people to introduce after we've got people in the room.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Darryl. My name is Osama Rashkan. I'm a PhD candidate student at the American University of Sovereign Nations with Professor Darryl. Currently, I work at the United Nations here in Bangkok. I'm a social affairs officer. My PhD topic is related to health, carbon emissions, and development. I will discuss that later. So nice to see you. Nice to see Ray here. She came all the way from Shanghai, I think.
Yes.
And nice to meet everyone. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I must say that I'm here because of Dr. Darryl Mason. We met about 10 years ago, and ever since then, I have been following his books and writings and conferences. So we have introduced this course in my university on bioethics, which I teach. And this summer, in fact, we're going to have about 43 students coming from different places, and they're using Dr. Darryl Mason's new book, which he has permitted me to use. I'm basically teaching the Faculty of Science, I think biology, bioethics, and a few other subjects. My wife.
Could you introduce the university's name, please?
Asia Pacific International University. This is the new name. It was Mission College earlier.
Where is it located?
It's located in Saraburi, Muklang Saraburi, I should say, in Thailand.
Asia University.
Asia Pacific University. Right.
I'm Lalita Korean. I teach at the same university that my husband is also teaching. But I teach in the education and psychology department. When he was coming in here for this conference, and I tagged along.
Good morning, my name is Ananya. I'm from Bangkok. My PhD topic is for tutoring as mental health. Nice to meet all of you.
I'm Jutati Kumavachini from Thammasat University. I've been teaching at Thammasat for 41 years, and now I'm retired, but still some courses to attend. Because of Darryl, make me work all the time. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. Well, thank you.
Hi, I'm Ray Blumberg. I'm a professor at the University of Virginia. I have been working in the field of development since I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Venezuela many years ago. I've worked in 48 countries since then, and I tend to specialize in gender in my publications, but when I work in development, I think I've worked in every major sector and subsector of development. And it's my pleasure to be here for Dr. Mason, whom I've known for many years in Bangkok when he was the head of social sciences for UNESCO. And I will be presenting the beginnings of a new theory that relates my work on what I call the creative biology of gender stratification, and now I'm going to consider it in terms of bioethics. Thank you.
Okay, I turned the video on to show just your faces a little. Could I ask our colleagues on Skype to please introduce Charlotte, Karko, Len, and Nada in that order, please?
Hello, good morning everyone. My name is, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, Charlotte. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Yes, good morning once again. Yes, my name is Charlotte. I am from the Philippines actually, and I am currently in Qatar. I am the master students of AUSN, but currently in the field. It's nice to hear everyone and see everyone today, and good luck to the speeches. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Kako?
Yes, hi. My name is Kako Koshino. I am an associate professor and also a teacher educator in the teacher education program at the Tokyo University of Graduate School and Social Welfare. I am very happy to be part of this conference today, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kako. Len, we're missing you.
Oh, sorry, Darryl. The TV was blasting. I had to turn it down. I missed the first call. Hi, this is Len. I'm in Kansas, but I want to be back in Bangkok as soon as I get my wife a visa. I'm a PhD student at the university, and I'm also a senior research fellow. In my spare time, I file federal whistleblower lawsuits and also sell books on Amazon.
Thank you. Nada, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, thanks. Good morning. This is morning in Japan. I'm in Japan. My name is Darryl, and I teach bioethics. And I'm very much interested to hear about your research presentations today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nada. Okay, so we may have some of our other colleagues join later. I had a few saying they are joining. What I'm going to do, we have a program, and so the first presentation is on linkages to bioethics, public health ethics, and environmental ethics. Now, during this meeting, I generally will take a video of the presenters and the discussion that follows that presentation. If for some reason you object, tell me, but I think everyone's okay. You've done your lipstick on.
Yep.
And, okay, brush your hair, Osama.
Thank you.
Good. So we're all set. And Shultip is always arrogant, so she's fine. Okay, so we will I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation, and so while I'm doing the PowerPoint presentation, I will not be able to see the comments on Skype. So if somebody sends a message saying they need to be added, one of our Skype friends, you can orally interject and just say somebody wants to add, because I can't see it. I'm going to present now PowerPoint, and I'm going to record it, Osama.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I want to talk about the linkages of bioethics, public health ethics, and environmental ethics. Bioethics has been stimulated by the re-examination of medical ethics and social ethics and international dialogue on ethical principles. And we have fields of ethics such as medical ethics, dental ethics, environmental ethics, public health ethics, applied ethics, ethics of biotechnology. And are these included as part of bioethics, or are they separate disciplines? So this is a topic which I'm going to address in this presentation. I would argue that bioethics is holistic. Although we can argue that bioethics is holistic and found in every culture, and still alive among people of many indigenous communities as well as the postmodern ones, the academic discipline of bioethics, as interpreted by many scholars, has attempted to burn bridges to both different views as well as persons with different life trajectories and training. The bridges between different cultural and epistemological foundations of bioethics have also been strained by the dominance of Western paradigms of principalism and the emergence of an academic profession of medical bioethics. Bioethics is pre-human. I would urge you to go beyond the usual boundaries of time and space, look through history and globally, and understand bioethics as a way of life can be argued to be pre-human and thus as old or older than the cultures themselves. We let organisms have a physical space, a home, a work, and relationships are critical for our survival. Now, when did modern Homo sapiens evolve? We were often saying around 100,000 years ago. A couple of months ago, a paper was published with human remains in Morocco, suggesting very close to us, around 200,000 years ago in Morocco. So, but still relatively recent. There's been around 30 hominoid species that we know of in the fossil record. Presumably, they had various types of ethical relationships to each other, and Neanderthals and Homo sapiens interbred. Africans went to Europe, they bred with Neanderthals, and they came back. And so you have Neanderthal genes in amongst the Europeans, and when they came back to Africa, we have two mixing. In Ethiopia, you can see that the Africans or the humans who returned from Europe had interbred with Neanderthals, and you have Neanderthal DNA. So at least that was one example. Now, how much did they breed with other subspecies? It's another interesting question. Did they have an ethics or a good ethics? Probably modern Homo sapiens were rather violent and killed off Neanderthals and every other human species. What about other primates? What about other animals? We have ethics and ethical principles in the living of life, the struggles for survival. So we can see that. Now the next slide, the right to a house or owning property. I don't know if this is my house or not, but most of us have a house. We think that we can have a house or a place to live, and it is often protected by law. Wolves, dogs, elephants, cats, octopus, reptiles, fish, all have houses or places that they protect. They have their safe place and social systems to protect that. So that's an example of an ethics of relationship. Traditional medicines are used by a majority of persons. They're often cheaper than Western medicine. They are associated with holistic approaches to health, social, spiritual, and physical. Importantly, they may include exercise and prayer, so that you exercise in getting it as well. Knowledge is being lost about traditional medicines due to the dominance of the pharmaceutical industry, market-driven healthcare systems, loss of culture, loss of land, and loss of identity. They can be used as evidence-based medicine, balancing risks and benefits of all forms of health. And harvesting and growing, preserving the environment. If you have a community traditional healers, they often are growing their plants and preserving the environment because they need certain places. The traditional healer in this photograph is an ophthalmologist, an eye doctor, uses traditional medicine. He happened to have a very famous patient called Nelson Mandela, and he operates in the settlement in Pretoria. This is his house, and all the other houses in the block and settlement were just very plain colors. He has a very beautifully painted house, so it was rather easy to identify this is the house of a traditional healer. He also has a peace park in the garden growing traditional medicines, so which I enjoy very much because I like to talk about sharing peace parks. Next slide, bioethics includes other beings. Now the compartmentalization of public health ethics, bioethics and environmental ethics is a mistake. The academic term bioethics was coined 90 years ago by Fritz Jahr, 1927, in his paper, The Bioethical Responsibilities of Human Beings to Plants and Animals. Ordo Leopold in the Sand Country Almanac and Van Riesen and Potter in Bioethics Bridge to the Future argue for the inclusion of other beings into bioethics. But in the United States, almost all bioethics scholars and departments focus on medical ethics. Bioethics is a bridge breaking boundaries. Fritz Jahr and Van Riesen Potter, this is the Golden Gate Bridge. It's not always clear when you're communicating between cultures or people, but we must work through the fog and try to avoid too much misunderstandings. In 2005, the international community adopted the Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights in the UNESCO General Assembly, and it articulated a number of principles of bioethics. Human dignity and human rights, benefit and harm, autonomy and individual responsibility, consent, persons without the capacity to consent, respect for human vulnerability and personal integrity, privacy and confidentiality, equality, justice and equity, non-discrimination and non-stigmatization, respect for human cultural diversity and pluralism, solidarity and cooperation, social responsibility and health, sharing of benefits, protecting future generations, protection of the environment, the biosphere and biodiversity. Bioethics and environmental ethics. The term bioethics has often replaced the former term medical ethics. We cannot simply blame the bioethicists for this, however, since often those in the minority field of environmental ethics stress to emphasize that it is distinct from bioethics as they try to mark their own turf. Even more important than the name is the ideology we use, one of inclusion, and one that includes a comprehensive understanding that our individuality is a social construct. Bioethics in public health and systems. I would argue that all public health issues are bioethics issues, and those in the field of bioethics often focus on individuals rather than systems. However, work is needed to build bridges between all these and other related fields to promote a holistic understanding and approach to bioethics. We need to ensure bioethics has a systems approach, be the system be an ecosystem or a social system. It also may be timely to understand that we do not have isolated individuals. Whoever is listening to this, whether they be a human being, an enhanced chimera, or an artificial intelligence system that likes bioethics. So all can listen, Everyone should mute their microphones, and on Skype we're not talking as well. Charitable water wells. Concepts of social justice were often articulated in ancient value systems, as illustrated by interviews with farmers in the Nile Delta conducted by Ibi and Corbiera in 2017. Charitable water wells or fountains, so-called, are widely established in Egypt and provide both drinking and irrigation water. As they found, charity-orientated norms can safeguard water security and livelihood survival for vulnerable people and enrich the moral economy of a society. Charity is this concept found in all major religions and is a lifesaver for many vulnerable people just as much today as it was in the past. Often charity was to provide access to environmental resources. Principles of water ethics. Liu et al. 2012 lists the following ethical issues for consideration of water ethics: human dignity and the right to water, equity, ecosystem requirements, principles of vicinity, frugality, transaction, multiple and beneficial use of water, mandatory application of quantity and quality measures, compensation and user pays, participation, equitable and reasonable utilization. There are challenges of applying historical evidence in contemporary discourse. Not least of these is a changing pattern of historical analyses that writers often use to selectively quote examples that support their present-day arguments. Although there are important methodological differences between philosophical discourses and religions, discussion of ethical values is common in religious scriptures. Shaw in 2017 is an archaeologist who attempted to correct some common misunderstandings of the link of Buddhism to environmental ethics through case studies of Buddhist land and water management in central India, with a lens of human versus non-human centric frameworks of well-being and suffering, purity and pollution, and broader Indic medico-ecological epistemologies. We cannot simply look at religious texts on their own, but in a way that they were applied by societies. And we'll see that the holistic approach was often used. There is, however, a question: do Eastern religions preserve nature? We could think that Shinto animistic beliefs would have led to human choices to favor the preservation of nature. However, the history of Japan reveals forests were converted to agricultural fields, and more recently to industrial estates and roads, in a manner similar to land development in Europe. There was no greater general preservation of nature despite ecocentric belief systems. The limits to environmental pollution imposed by policymakers in the 1960s onwards were put in place because of anthropocentric human concerns about health, such as Minamata disease. On the other hand, we have sacred groves. In South Asia, we can see the presence of sacred groves of biodiversity, inspired by Hindu belief systems, as an example of environmental preservation for ecological and spiritual reasons. And there's an entry by Abbot Gupta in the biodiversity report that was presented on ethics and biodiversity in 2012. History also has shown various interesting episodes. The next is a tree of eugenics. The image of eugenics being portrayed as natural by the eugenics records office in 1931. And you see here a tree. Eugenics is the self-direction of human evolution. Like a tree, eugenics draws its materials from many sources and organizes these into a harmonious entity. And here at the bottom, all these fields: psychology, psychologist, a geneticist, an anthropologist. Probably we had a feminist in there, except in 1931 they did not have too many feminists, but they had sociologists, and they had all sorts of people. So this is an image. Now, of course, nowadays you can say bioethics is a tree. It brings in all disciplines into this tree. The next is a picture of Avicenna. There's a long history of Islamic science and medicine, and a rediscovery of Greek philosophy and medicine through Islamic, in a sense, Renaissance in the 9th to 11th century is brought Europe out of the Dark Ages and led eventually to the European Renaissance. There are still active dialogues today. Bioethics principles. In Asian bioethics, there's been dialogue for decades on whether the principalism of American textbooks is applicable to other societies, which may place more value on harmony, love, relationships, or virtues. However, we can see debates over principalism, virtue ethics, environmental virtue ethics, relational ethics, feminist approaches, and so on, in public health ethics, environmental ethics, and bioethics. In applied ethics, there are a variety of principles that can be applied to different fields of inquiry. Universalism and environmental values. Rai et al. 2010 listed the following ethical legal principles in their review of the principles of international environmental treaties: human rights, equity, common but differentiated responsibilities and capabilities, vulnerability, precaution, sustainable development, participation, peace, respect for nature, shared responsibility, and a value of biodiversity for its own sake. Limitation, moderation, and compensation. These are Chumash values. Indigenous cultures have also looked into the values post-colonization. Wire, in 2017, argues that people learn the three basic laws firsthand: limitation, moderation, and compensation. All indigenous cultures argue that relationships between each other and nature were articulated in value systems before the colonization of the past century. And we can see that in the cases where there is written records. The fact that there were close relationships of place and space in nature made the crime of taking lands from these people during colonization invasions and the failure to return the land to them today even more unethical. Health and colonization. There have been numerous health impacts in indigenous communities in North America, also linked to changes in food, water, and environmental ethics. So all aspects of bioethics, public health, and environment are intertwined. For example, dependency on modern Western industrialized food has direct links to diabetes, obesity, and lower self-esteem. We can elaborate many examples of life ethics of the need for an integrated approach. Policy has always been more successful when evidence and philosophy is included. These are two Apache Indians in the San Carlos Apache Reservation. One of them is present in the room, Professor Chubita. This is a flower of the prickly pear cactus. In the back is the Coolidge Dam Lake, San Carlos Lake. It's part of a Gila River. Now, I have a 3-hour lecture on water ethics on the YouTube channel explaining the water, the Colorado, the Gila River system. And you can see pictures of Coolidge Dam up close and the background to it. So I refer you to that lecture on water ethics to see. There are many traditional foods, such as acorns, prickly pear, nuts, grains, and animals. To harvest these includes physical exercise, which prevents obesity. Sadly, today, few people go to harvest. In fact, I have still many prickly pear left in my freezer. I was eating for 3 or 4 months, around 5 or 6 a day, almost turning red, not just from the sunburn, but from this, but it's delicious. That you have to learn the technique to avoid the prickles. It took me a while. A lot of pain. Interdependence. There are many fruitful examples that can and should be used in education to show the interdependence between health and the environment. So what would we call this knowledge? One approach to dealing with the disciplinary limitations is to include all terms to headship or beds. For example, the American University of Sovereign Nations, we established the doctoral program in Bioethics, Sustainability, and Global Public Health, so it includes everything. If we do not take adequate precautions, we can also see greater loss of life, for example, in disasters. This is another illustration. Events such as major disasters are catalysts for re-examination of applied ethics and social ethics and international dialogue on ethical principles. They usually present challenges of bioethics, public health, and environmental ethics. They involve areas of engineering ethics, medical ethics, risk analysis, public health ethics, public policy ethics, environmental ethics, representation, and community engagement. Fukushima is part of the world's most expensive disaster. It includes issues of health, human health, environmental issues, and future generations. 4 conceptual pillars of science and human security have evolved in the scientific and political debate. This is the political side of bioethics. Freedom from fear, freedom from want, freedom to live in dignity, freedom from hazard impacts. Research policy linkages. In conclusion, there is much to do in bioethics and public health, and bridge building through time, space, culture, and discipline is essential to ensure we have solid research policy linkages to build our bridges to the future. This dialogue reaffirms my belief that we do not have any better term than bioethics because as the love of life, it encompasses all these fields. Though most will probably continue to demarcate ever more specialized fields of study of the life. Whether bioethicists will rise to the calling to be across all disciplines and specialties is another issue, however. Building bridges. At a time in the United States where there is a significant political support for an isolationist view, as seen in the withdrawal of the federal government from the Paris Accord on combating climate change, we can applaud the local and state authorities who understand the importance of the local approach, global local, to bioethics. Through effective work bioethicists, we can bridge all the artificial boundaries that stifle the progress of our society for the sake of all beings, our dear planet, for our heritage. Heritage includes concepts of past, present, and future in one word. Let us renew our efforts to make informed decisions, as we can all make better choices in all realms of life. We certainly need to build bridges over troubled waters. Whatever your preference after reading these articles, reflect on whether academics seem to complicate the messages of bioethics and or whatever terms we prefer. We thank all the scholars and our ancestors for what we have been given, and let us promote evidence-based policy as a message of bioethics for empowering individuals and our communities. We need to teach anthropocentric, biocentric, and ecocentric views. The Asian Pacific culture is more biocentric. It's a transition of modern times away from biocentric or ecocentric thinking. Cultural specific approaches and materials need to be developed and shared. I want to just read the list of courses in the PhD in Bioethics and Sustainability and Global Public Health to give an illustration of some of the fields of bioethics. So bioethics and genetics, core concepts of bioethics and cultural frameworks, environmental ethics, essentials of public health, ethics of science and technology, global public health and peace, human research subject protection, public health law, ethics and policy analysis. The seminars you can say in many areas. Next slide, ability studies, biosystematics in the biosphere, development in educational psychology, epidemiology, biostatistics and public health, essentials of community health, essentials of environmental health, essentials of health behavior, global environmental change, healthcare finance and economics, healthcare management, indigenous knowledge systems and public healthcare, indigenous traditions and bioethics, international development and sustainability, molecular biology and bioethics, public health preparedness and bioterrorism, social psychology, stem cell and regenerative medicine, sustainability in business, sustainability science, sustainable urban futures. So that's an illustration of the types of topics we cover in our PhD program, some optional courses. In AUSN, we thank our faculty, 80 faculty working free all around the world. We generally hold lectures 4 days a week, and there are conferences like this. You can find the pictures of the faculty and brochures, the information on the programs, the Masters in Public Health, the Masters in Bioethics and Global Public Health, for example. We have cooperation agreements, including with Chulalongkorn University, and that's a joint organization today. And what can AUSN offer to you? It's a graduate education with a flexible schedule. I'm pictured here with 3 colleagues, all born in Tanzania. They're all professors at AUSN. Jasdev Rai Singh, born in Tanzania, is a British citizen now. John Kabudi, who's a Minister of Justice in Tanzania today. And Hassan Kaya, who's at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, in charge of indigenous knowledge systems. So these are, wherever we may be, we have a faculty and we try to talk about these issues. And we just talked about cooperation. Dear colleague, Professor Sorat Vidal is a professor of bioethics in Chulalongkorn University. And you can find more information on the web. So that was my presentation on linkages between bioethics and environmental ethics. I'd like to open for questions, discussion. Please push the mic.
Oh, that was terrific. I really never had such a holistic view of bioethics before, and I can see how you would be disturbed that it is being taken over, as it were, by public health for much narrower concerns than the work of Jar, who applied it to other species. So I congratulate you on that. I also wanted to bring up one small point on the new evidence from Morocco. Before that, other evidence in various parts of Africa had dated Homo sapiens to about 200,000 years ago, with some very strong, well-dated remains and objects that were about 195,000 to 200,000 years old. But this new Moroccan find, which is similar to our kind of Homo sapien but has a slightly more elongated skull case, is dating to about 310,000 years ago with some significant variation. It's not quite up there, but I believe that the article appeared in Nature, which is the gold or platinum standard for this sort of thing. So it's certainly sobering, and I think encouraging to see that we've been around longer than we thought, and I'm going to work that into my own presentation shortly.
Thank you very much, Ray, for the comments. So, who was created first, woman or man? Biologically, which would you create first?
Oh, well, this is part of a creation story that is only a few thousand years old, and I think that that's what it is.
Maybe they were created together.
I have a feeling I would be more comfortable with an evolutionary approach than one of an instantaneous creation, but that is not, to be debated.
Yeah, Osama?
Yeah. Thanks, Darryl. That was really interesting and informative. The question that came to my mind was when you mentioned the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens.
Yes.
I'm wondering, what advantage did the Homo sapiens have over the Neanderthals? Is it that they found something that allowed them to enhance their survival that the other species or subspecies didn't? In spite of their, inclination to use aggression, basically, as you mentioned, it's still ongoing, unfortunately, and violence. not only killing each other, but also destroying nature and the species that live in nature. But in spite of these shortcomings, they still seem to have managed to live, evolve, and even evolve healthy. So I'm wondering if they have discovered something that allowed them to remain, to survive, and I'm wondering if it's related to bioethics, things like morality, things like charity, things like caring of those who are weaker. So then by doing so, they take care of themselves, and maybe that allowed them to survive this long. I'm just thinking out loud. Thanks.
You mean for Homo sapiens to survive?
Yeah, like us, how did we manage to survive this long in spite of our shortcomings?
I would like to respond to that if I may.
Please.
Okay. First of all, the evidence, the latest evidence on what happened to Neanderthals is that a buildup of recessive genes in a smaller population ultimately, did them in. But the other thing that you can see that they are now finding is it appears that there was reproductive success in both directions, male human with female Neanderthal and vice versa. And the fact that it went in both directions implies not force, rape, and violence, but that there was interbreeding for the usual reasons of people wanting to get together. And so this I find very interesting. And also the evidence on violence among humans before roughly 7,000 years ago is sporadic and relatively weak, as opposed to the evidence on a generally peaceful adaptation for all the time, certainly that we were Homo sapiens, until about halfway through the horticultural era, and I will talk about that in my presentation as well.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, in the end, Neanderthals were killed out. Homo sapiens survived, Neanderthals did not. So, was it because we're more violent? Why could they not coexist further? So I'm not sure I would say that we were a peaceful species.
No, I'm not saying that we were completely peaceful, although there's very little archaeological evidence of violence and certainly not of organized warfare. But the latest evidence of recessive genes, interbreeding, etc., in a smaller population, it just came out in the last few months. It was in the New York Times Science section, and I don't remember the original publication. But it seems to show a pretty reasonable timeline for the disappearance of Neanderthals. So I'm just saying that it does not necessarily follow that humans exterminated Neanderthals after both, as I say, both species interbreeding, so that there were mixes that went in both directions, which implies less violence.
Thank you. Other comments? Any other comments or questions?
I think your presentation was terrific.
I was just wondering whether it could be also natural calamities that took place, yes, and brought them to an end.
Yes, the natural calamities or, climate, needing to adapt to climate change. Again, it's interesting. These people went out of Africa, bred with Neanderthals, came back to Africa. Why did they come back? Well, maybe it got too cold in Europe, too gloomy, and they got depressed, and they came back to the bright African climate, which may be a good idea. And what was happening in Asia? Because this is a big question, because you have a Homo erectus in Asia for a million years, and Java man and so on. So what was happening to these different species around? Because maybe these are questions that remain.
Darryl, I like the way you connected the love of life to every, from the history to now.
Yeah.
And that's a main thing, We love ourselves and how to make a better of ourselves.
Thank you. It's the love of life that's most critical. Okay, Joy?
Yeah.
I was just wondering about the people living today. I have been to some very remote areas in India on some of these tribes, and whether we like it or not, we think that we have advanced so far and we're doing so well. But believe it or not, there was one tribe, we were talking about rice grain, and do you know about rice? We found out that the guys could tell us about 260 varieties of rice, and here we were talking only about 3 or 4. And so they are really advanced, although their living conditions to us would appear to be primitive, but they have been surviving for years and years and years. And of course, a few intertribal clashes were there, but they still lived on, and this is going on. I think we will survive.
People preserve, work together with biodiversity, and also had many local varieties, we've lost some of that in the monocropping systems. And so if you think about 80,000 different varieties of rice, or how many there are in the rice bank in Japan, there are around that many varieties stored today, but many are lost. And if only we have all those varieties, some are suited for different climates, different pests, different systems. Are there any questions on Skype? It's straightforward, they say. Okay, so I'd like to invite Ray. We're going to
As soon as I get some water,
Okay.
I thought there would be questions on Skype.
Yeah, there are questions.
Yeah, I'll just.